Smiling faces. It is my pleasure to be here this morning and try to stand in. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield. My name is Lee. With my wife Beverly, we have been joyful members of this fellowship since 1998. That means I'm reaching an advanced age, doesn't it? Not necessarily. Thank you. Thank you. I'm missing something here. I guess a few words got left off. Well, I'll just say it. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield fosters intellectual growth and ethical and social responsibility. If you are a visitor either on site or online, we are glad that you are with us, and we invite you to stay after the service to get acquainted. We welcome your questions and look forward to getting to know you. Today we welcome Dr. Andrea Johnson, as our guest presenter. I will share a more complete introduction in a bit, but for now, welcome Reverend Johnson. Later in the service today, we will take our Share the Plate offering as a way to care for the wider world. Each month, we share our offering with an organization that embodies UU values in the world. This month's recipient is the Minnesota chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP. This organization works to prevent deaths by suicide and to support those whose lives have been impacted by it. They bring hope and healing into places of despair and pain. You can read more about their legislative advocacy work and the extensive resources they offer on their website, afsp.org. During the offering later, you may put cash or a check in the basket or donate online from our website, uunorthfield.org. If you are paying your pledge by check, please note in the memo line either capital pledge or annual pledge. They are separate accounts. There will also be instructions on the screen during the offertory time. I call your attention to the announcements in your order of service and weekly email. There you'll find more information about the following. Coffee with the minister. You can join Reverend Sarah for what has become a summer tradition of gathering for coffee and conversation. Stop by Tuesdays, July 16th, 23rd, 30th. Am I going too fast? You taking notes? At 10 to 11:30 a.m. Hideaway Coffee House is where it happens. Weather permitting, outside if possible. A question from the Green Team. The UUA is encouraging congregations to take part in a UU Climate Justice Revival on September 28th and 29th. Before we begin planning, it is important to know the level of interest in this at UUFN. Please see this month's Reach newsletter for more information, or talk to Bill Jokela or any Green Team member. He's the gentleman that greeted you this morning standing at the back, in case you're not familiar. Join us next Sunday, July 14th for Singing Our Living Tradition, a reflection on UU hymns. Come join our own Taylor Wesson in an exploration of the tunes we know and love as UUs, how they began and how they came to be certified BOPS? BOPS? What does that stand for?
A song you can group to.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The ones we love to sing each Sunday. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield. Our opening words today are from Lucas Hergert. Love is the doctrine of this church. Our faith in each other is its sacrament. Working for justice and living with compassion is its prayer. Reverently, we covenant together to side with love, to heal and not to harm, and to share hope with each other and with the world. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Each Sunday when we gather, we bring this symbol to life together. Please join me in speaking the words for the lighting of the chalice. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, Building a New Way. Let us move into our time of centering and connection. Spirit of life and love, draw near. Help us to become more aware of your presence, shimmering within and among us. Will you take a breath with me? In the presence of a love that holds us all, we use our chalice flame to light our candles of community. We light our first candle as a blessing for the wider world. On this 4th of July weekend, filled with picnics and parties and fireworks, we are reminded to reflect on the meaning of the holiday. Independence Day is a time to celebrate the birth of our nation and the freedoms we hold dear. However, as we enjoy the festivities, it's important to remember the ongoing threats to democracy that we face. Vigilance and active participation in our democratic processes are essential to preserving the liberties and freedoms that we enjoy. We know too that the details of our lives are sacred and important. we now light a candle for all the simple joys that are sustaining us. As we light another candle in honor of the sorrows and hardships we might be carrying. More candle in honor of the joys and sorrows we carry in our hearts, but that have not been spoken aloud. And we move into a time of silence. May the truth of your heart be reflected in these flames. Amen and blessed be. Our reading today is from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, Where Do We Go From Here? Delivered in Atlanta in August of 1967. I love the cadence of his voice. I have often admired it a great deal. He seemed to have a way to bring the message across so clearly and distinctly. I miss him. He says, I have decided to stick with love, for I know that love is ultimately the only answer to humankind's problems. And I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go. I know it isn't popular to talk about it in some circles today. And I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about a strong, demanding love. For I have seen too much hate, and I say to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to love. If you are seeking the highest good, I think you can find it through love. And the beautiful thing is that we aren't moving wrong when we do it, because John was right. God is love. He who hates does not know God, but he who loves has the key that unlocks the door to the meaning of ultimate reality. We will now expand our circle of care. We gratefully give and receive the offering for the Minnesota chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. This is one way we make our care for the world tangible. Will the ushers please come forward? Reverend Dr. Andrea Johnson is a community minister affiliated with First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. She recently completed her Doctor of Ministry in Public Theology at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. The title of her dissertation is Human Liberation, Sacred Nature, and the Inescapable Network of Mutuality, Theologically Grounding Unitarian Universalism's Quest to Dismantle White Supremacy. Dr. Johnson.
Good morning. It is a delight to be here today on this wonderful sunny morning. So it was the Tuesday before the 2018 Super Bowl, which was to be held in Minneapolis that year, when I received a call from the leader of the Black Lives Visions Collective, wondering if I would be willing to show up for a direct action plan for Super Bowl Sunday. The call was a clear and radical ask. Would we white folks be willing to risk arrest by literally using our bodies, and in my case, ministerial authority, as shields by shutting down the light rail train line into Minneapolis? And by doing so, creating a safer environment for the message of the Black Visions Collective to be centered and heard. As I moved toward responding to this call, it became abundantly clear to me that this difficult ask constituted an undeniable manifestation of my Christian roots, calling me to live out Jesus's teaching of loving God by loving my neighbor, and to follow his example of being in solidarity with the least of these. Further, this ask also constituted a clear manifestation of my Unitarian Universalist faith, embraced as an adult, which, as you so well know, proclaims that we all spring from a common source, share a common destiny, and participate in the promise of salvation for all. This inclusive faith, this faith without a creed, this faith responsive to the plight of the least of these, is reflected powerfully in the principles and now our new values of our association. If I truly believe that we are all in this together, and that every person is of sacred worth and dignity, then I am called to embrace my neighbor's full humanity, to listen to their truths and experiences, and to let them shape my soul as we work together to create a world that is worthy of our children's common destinies. After talking with the protest organizer about what would be involved and consulting with my family and the congregation where I was interning at the time, I decided to say yes, to answer the call of love and justice that my faith demands. I fully and I hope humbly acknowledge that being with this collective during the 3 days of training that it took to prepare for the action changed me. I now know it is possible to build the world we say we want to build, because there we were, a multiracial, multicultural, intergenerational group of folks who had never met before, but who worked together, followed and trusted Black leadership, and took risks for justice we had never imagined possible. Standing in the freezing cold on Super Bowl Sunday, I was moved to tears by the powerful message delivered by the members of the collective. They demanded that we divest from policing big events for the privileged few, and instead invest in communities of color and trans folks who are in vastly more need than the people sitting in the stadium. They demanded that we treat sex workers as victims and end the cash bail system that makes poverty a crime. They promised to continue fighting until Minneapolis is not just safe, but full of joy and possibility. They invited us to imagine a different future where there's a roof over every head, where Black children can dream big and live free and healthy lives, and where Black bodies are not used as currency on sports fields, in prisons, or in wars. As we stood there, arms locked across the rail line, we also witnessed joy. The Black Visions Collective folks were singing, dancing, and demanding full humanity for all. One of the chants that the collective sang that day has stuck with me. It goes like this. It is our duty to avenge the suffering of our ancestors, earn the respect of future generations, and be transformed in the service of this work. As I witnessed their fierce, joyful resistance, I chanted with them in my heart. You colonized our home and we always resisted. You exploited our labor, and we always resisted. You took Philando, Marcus, and Jamar from us, and we always resisted. Following this powerful experience of collaborative direct action, I was left facing difficult questions. How might we, Unitarian Universalists, honor the courage of our ancestors and be worthy inheritors of our faith? And how might we also boldly pass this faith to a new generation? Since I am a theologian at heart, today I want to focus specifically on the theological heritage of our faith that may offer fruitful and life-giving resources for responding to these questions. So by theology, I mean something beyond meditating on our smallness in the scheme of things, and more encompassing than the classical definition of theology as simply God talk. Specifically, as a Unitarian Universalist theologian, in my view, theology constitutes critical and creative reflection on the basic principles of Unitarian Universalism. Principles that are not dogmas and doctrines, but rather diverse teachings, paths, and traditions, as well as the multiple sources on which they draw. As you know, these teachings vary widely. Some are theistic, some are humanistic, some atheistic, and even non-theistic. Ultimately, theology helps us ask questions about what is true or untrue, what is right or wrong, what is beautiful or ugly, what is life-denying or death, what is life-giving or death-dealing. Furthermore, rooted in the liberal theological tradition, our Unitarian Universalist theology should help us articulate a sense of meaning and ethical orientation, helping us envision the world we long to bring into being. Thus, our justice work should be grounded in our theology, our spiritual practice, and ritual. A critical question for those of us engaged in rigorous theological reflection becomes, how does our theological heritage inform our racial justice work? Early Unitarians, in the name of Scripture and reason, rejected the Trinity in favor of the unity or oneness of God, a unity that offers profound connection to divinity. The Reverend William Ellery Channing believed that every person carries a seed of goodness, a divine spark. In his Likeness to God sermon preached in 1828, he says this: "The idea of God sublime is the idea of our own spiritual nature purified and enlarged to infinity. In ourselves are the elements of divinity. God then does not sustain a figurative resemblance to man. It is the resemblance of a parent to a child, the likeness of a kindred nature." In this passage, Channing affirms that all of us are worthy because we belong to something greater than ourselves that connects us to one another. You can choose to call this God, Buddha nature, the interconnected web, or simply love. Martin Luther King Jr. drew on this inherent understanding of the worth and dignity of all and called this the network of mutuality, tied together with one destiny. This theological truth contends that at the heart of our very lives abides a transforming and sustaining love. It is inherent in me and you. This love demands to be made manifest here on earth, and it links us together in an inextricable network of beauty, pain, and hope. In my own theologizing, I name God as the interdependent web of existence, which calls me to love my neighbor as myself. Bernard Loomer, a Unitarian theologian writing in the late 1970s, describes beautifully how love works in the interconnected web. He says, "We love because we are interdependent, because we enter into each other's lives. Love does not create our essential interrelatedness. Rather, love is an acknowledgement of it. We love because we are bound to each other, because we live in and are fulfilled with and through each other. We love because a failure to love is a denial of the other, ourselves, and our interrelatedness. It results in a diminution of all of us, including God." I take deeply to heart Loomer's affirmation that love is not something that creates interconnectedness. Love is our acknowledgement of it. Love is the acknowledgement of the oneness we share with our neighbor and the earth. Love is a commitment to expand the depth of our souls to include everything and everyone. In its ultimate form, love is divine. The commitment to open ourselves to all that is present in our lives, in our world, as well as all that is past and all that is possible. Participating in the Super Bowl protest, opening myself up to the grief and anguish, and yes, joy of my Black brothers and sisters was incredibly painful, but to turn away from loving my neighbor would have meant denying their lived experience, as well as our interrelatedness. So what does the Universalist side of our tradition say about racial justice? Both our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors recognized that whatever we do or do not believe about God, love makes a profound claim on our lives. American Universalism, like its spiritual sister, American Unitarianism, began as a radical and optimistic Christian heresy in response to the grim doctrines of the 18th century Calvinistic Puritanism. In direct contradiction to Puritanism's gloomy gospel of retribution, the early Universalists boldly proclaimed that the essential qualities of God are not wrath, disgust, and judgment, but goodness, mercy, and love. Our Universalist ancestors believed in the simple yet radical idea that God's love was so big and all-encompassing that no one would be left out. No one would be consigned to eternal damnation. In place of Calvinism's doctrine of predestination, Universalists held to the radical idea that all human beings share a common destiny, that division between the saved and the unsaved is non-existent. Therefore, the greatest commandment is to love God with all one's heart, mind, and soul, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. Universalist minister and suffragette Olympia Brown preached that, quote, "The people of all the nation are children of God and must all share in the wealth of the world." Brown also recognized that her faith implied that, quote, "If we all have one God, we are all kindred, thus everyone is worthy of our love, and all are sacred." Our Universalist heritage calls us to be a community of love where all are included and no one is left outside the circle. At a time when our nation is deeply divided and our democracy severely threatened, I can think of no better place to put our efforts than to commit to building a more just and socially conscious democracy. Drawing on our rich and challenging theological heritage, let us put our faith into action by exerting our moral courage and our ethical power to bring about the political change necessary to continue dismantling the systems that uphold white supremacy. As so eloquently demanded by the Black Visions Collective on Super Bowl Sunday, let us work to create communities where love and justice define the interrelatedness and interdependence of all people. It is precisely this magnificent theological heritage that calls UUs to work for justice in the world. Our belief that each person is sacred and worthy of dignity, and that whatever we may or may not believe about God, we know that love is a way of being, makes a profound claim on our lives. Love calls us to build the beloved community together, one body, one human family, and we share a common destiny. When the news of the day includes yet another shooting of a Black man at the hands of police, or anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim hate crimes due to the wars in Israel and Gaza, we can take refuge in and inspiration from our faith. During these precarious times, we can turn to our faith for strength, hope, and solidarity. We can come back again and again to the message of Unitarian Universalism, the call for an inclusive welcome and universal solidarity, to the unwavering message that every human being is a child of God, deserving of love, justice, and dignity. It was radical 300 years ago when most houses of worship preached hellfire, division, and damnation, and it is still radical today when we dare to proclaim there are no other people's children, no other people's lives, other people's fate. Our lives are more deeply interconnected and intertwined than we may ever know. May it be so, and amen.
Please rise in body or spirit. We sing together our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
May we be emboldened by our Unitarian and Universalist faith to build beloved community inside these walls and beyond.
Please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body or spirit and with your hands over your heart, holding a hand of those next to you, or whatever posture is most comfortable. We sing words of blessing to one another. Go in peace.
just brought something to my mind. There's many kids that distance like crazy. It's just a good sign. Yeah, it's we have two sons that have done that. So, there it is, and then I have children. So, maybe if you have a lot of children.
It's a business state. So you had to get background on the side as you're watching chat, you're watching Zoom. So it was like 3 screens at the once.
Oh, that's the commitment.
But they had a lot of if you're at that level, but not at this level. But it was really, so I really do appreciate it. I really like Catholic background.
What you're talking about is in the book.
And I appreciate it. It's concise. I didn't think that love and accept it. Everybody has love and accept. So that's the next point. Love and accept. You did, but I was in Article 2. Exactly. Article 2. Anyway, I appreciate all that. Yeah, that's how you build the mission. Well, and someone said, you didn't. all muddled up with a lot of it's like, you know, it's whatever. You guys go off on it. They go with the rabbit hole. Like crazy. How did you going way off? So more power. It actually, it's actually, you know, almost antidepressant. The same kind of power within tribes, within India, big way, etc. Or China again. But it's a gambit that you're going to use. It's just, someone's always going to say, hey, I want to just take this, or I want to sit down, and you're going to survive. And now we have the economic I was right. And but capitalism is not impressive. It doesn't, I mean, I don't think, I wouldn't call that impressive capitalism.
Yeah, I did have a vote on it.
I'd say it's a welfare state capitalism. Or a series of library.
What, that doesn't make sense.